Hello. I am Melanie. Excited you guys are here watching this video. What I got for you guys today. I know I have a little jazz hands, but I'm excited. I'm excited to wrap up my month. September has been kind of a weird month, meaning I didn't read for the first half of the month, and then the last week, 10 days of the month, I said a week, but 10 days, I was just knocking out some books. So I'm excited to share with you what I did, what I got through. I read 2 books on the Kindle, and then I read, how many books on? 6. And then I read 6 books between audios and physical copies, which is about 8 books, which is not bad for almost not reading this month. I'm surprised like what number of books I would actually read if I read consistently at the same pace, but you know, it's okay. We're not going anywhere with it. But in this case, it's nice to see you guys. It is end of September. We're about to be into October, and I got a few books. Okay. I think it's easy to start with what I read on the Kindle. I read some Kindle books at the beginning of the month. I read 2 different authors, very new to me actually. The first book that I read, it's from the Girl Meets the Duke series. It's book number 1. It's called The Duchess's Deal by Tessa Dare. I rated that book a 3 stars. It was all right. I just read it. It was entertaining. That's all I can say. Like, I rated it a low 3. I don't really know what else to say about that book. Would I recommend it? Maybe. Is it the best romance book I've read? No. Is it one of the top ones? Definitely not. I'm not making this seem like a good book, but it wasn't awful. It just wasn't great. There was spice in this book as well, skippable spice. So you could just kind of easily go through it, and it wasn't like embedded in the whole plot, like Archer's Voice, but you know, we're not gonna talk about that. King of Sin, which is book 1 in the King of Wrath series by Anna Hong. I read that also this month. It wasn't that bad, but also wasn't great. I can see why people like Anna Hong. She's a very light, fluffy, easy read. There's just not, it's like, the best way I could describe her books is like watching Hallmark movies, where you know the end of the plot. It's very soft, cushiony, comfy. The one thing I really loved is that the but both of the characters have a very cultural depthness to them, if that made sense. So it was pretty cool to learn about like Asian cultures and stuff like that. I loved that. A little taste of from a different side. I read that on the Kindle. It was all right. Would I continue to read the second book in any of these series? Probably not, unless I'm bored. That's the only way I would read anything else, is if I ran out of ideas to read, or books to read. I also rated The King of Wrath 3 stars. I wouldn't say it was a high 3, but it was a 3. Like, it was all right. If you need like a Hallmark movie type of book, it'll work. It'll do. But this book also does have spice in it as well. So those are the 2 books I read on the Kindle. Now let's move to physical versus audiobooks. And part of me is just gonna rant them off in order. I was gonna put them in order I read the books I read, but I didn't think about that before I did this. First book I read, not the first book, but one of the books I read this month is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This has been on my TBR since May. I actually have the novella, Killjoy, and the second book to this as well, that I bought all at the same time, because this was when like Target had their deal before summer with their buy one get one half off. This book, 4 stars. It was pretty good. It was a good mystery, broke it up. I feel like it's really hard for me to rate mystery books because I don't read a lot of them. It is easy for me to rate a higher rating for a mystery book. This is, to a lot of people, this is probably like a 3.5 stars. This was a 4 star to me. It wasn't too bad. I was surprised. I thought this was gonna leave me in a cliffhanger that I was gonna have to read the next book. And I don't feel that. I was just shocked. I thought it was a series and it was gonna like keep me on the edge of my seat the entire series. But I like it in this case because now I can move on to a different book without feeling like I'm leaving myself out on a cliffhanger. So, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I read that one by Holly Jackson. About 4 stars, but low 4, not really high. Not even almost a 5 star, but it was pretty good. It was entertaining. It scratched the itch. Next book I read was City of Bones. City of Bones, I have also been trying to read since May. And I was literally at the halfway mark up until this month. And I finished it off and it got good. I was almost about to DNF the whole series. But what's crazy is that the first book that I ever really bought, fiction book that I bought this year, was definitely the whole series for this. So I was a little upset because I'm like, I don't even want to, like, I didn't even feel the urge to finish the book. This was a low 4 stars. It was good. It got good at the end. And I think it's because I started to forget what was in the TV show at this point. And I think it was really hard for me to read this because I watched the movies, also the TV shows, and it's like when you have a world where you've already envisioned what was going to happen and seen the plot, it's really hard to just read it. So that's why I'm a huge component of reading the book before the movie. That's definite. This was about 4 stars. It was all right. Am I going to read the second book? Yes. Am I going to read it this month? Probably not. Book 2, Archer's Voice. I've already talked about how I felt about this book. I was on the edge of my seat till halfway. And then after halfway, the middle 100 pages, 120 pages, pure boredom. It was all where the spice was, and the spice wasn't skippable. I was about to DNF this book, not gonna lie. I was gonna rate this book like 2 stars or even DNF it. And then I said, you know what? I have 100 pages left, so let's push through it. I loved the idea of the book, but I didn't like how the book was written and the way the plot fell through with this book. The book's called Archer's Voice, but there is not as much as the perspective of Archer that I expected. I think I would have rated this I would have given this a higher rating if I had more from Archer. What's crazy is you don't get Archer's like perspective and views till the last 100 pages of the book. There was like a after, like, you know how authors have like not an acknowledgement, but like post-epilogue. I didn't want to read that because I was so upset because all this stuff that I really wanted to know about Archer should have been in the middle of the book when I was bored. I would have had this book as 5 stars. But the fact that it was put at the end of the book and I was already discouraged, a low 3. Would I recommend this book to people? Probably not. Would I see people enjoying this book? Yes, I do. And I think for me, because I've read so many not fantasies, but so many romance books, there are just certain things that I'm bored and certain things that I'm not bored, and I know what I like and I don't like. And I just didn't like how it was the plot was created. But I love the characters. I think the characters were great. Like, it was great to see you followed the journey of Archer, he had a tragic accident happen to him and he's mute, so he can't speak. But majority of his life, nobody ever really tried to communicate with him. So he was just all alone by himself. And he was sitting. So with all of that, I can see why people rated this 5 stars. I just wish I could have rated it 5 stars. I would have if the plot wasn't the way that it was. But you know what? I'm gonna stop ranting about this book. But Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I have another book by her that I'm gonna try. I don't want to say that this is how all her books are, but I'll try another book by her, which I have on my shelf, and we'll see. We'll see. The Perfect Marriage. I loved this book. This is 5 stars. I haven't had a 5-star in a very long time. This mystery had my mouth dropped the whole time. It literally, like, story short, there's a girl named Sarah. She's like a very successful lawyer. She's married to a writer. The writer cheats on her. The girl he cheats on her with ends up being killed. Guess who is defending him? His wife. So yes, it's an amazing story. And there's not a lot of spice in it. I think I tagged 2 places in this book. And when I mean, I want to see when this book was like written. And I say that 2020. Okay. So this book, the way the spice is, it's a paragraph and it's done. Meaning you could literally just go boop, and keep moving forward. Books nowadays are like a whole like 2-3 pages. I can't do that. And 2, when I gotta skip and then there's a plot, there's important information in the spice, I get upset. I get so upset. It's not even funny. But anyway, I love this book. Great mystery. Is there a romance subplot? Not really, but it was so good. Had it on the edge of my seat the entire time because I'm like, who did who? What happened? What evidence said what? The whole time. I loved this book. 5 stars. Will always. Another thing too, another person I tried this month is Catherine Centers. I read a book by her already this year, Bodyguard. It was all right. 3 stars. High 3. It was all right. These 2 books I read by her, I really enjoyed. 4 stars. Was it a 5 star? No. And it's mostly because it's probably in the romance category. Maybe I'm too harsh on my ratings, but when it comes to romance, it is very hard for me to rate a romance book like 5 stars unless I'm like jaw dropped, loving the plot, loving the characters, loving the pacing. But this was 4 stars for me. What You Wished For, it was really good. It had, the one thing I love about Catherine Center that I've noticed that is consistent in all her books is at the very end, there's an author's note, and the last like 100 pages of the book, she makes a point to like weave in a lesson and a reflection in it. I can see why these books make great book club books. Of course, also she has like book club questions at the back of each book, but What You Wish For, it was really good. 4 stars, high 4, almost 5, but it follows Duncan and Samantha. The female lead is a librarian and Duncan is a carpenter, and both of them has had kind of rough lives. But one is of course grumpy and one of them is sunshine, but the grumpy's not very grumpy. The grumpy's like an undercover grumpy. You know what I mean? So he moves in, principal dies, which we will know in the first like 5 pages. The old principal dies and he comes in to replace the old principal. The old principal is like jumping for joy, amazing, everyone loves him. But this Duncan guy has a chip on his shoulder. And she used to know him at the old school a long while back. And so what she ends up doing is she's trying to help him ice his cold heart. That's the way that I'm gonna put it. It's really good. And I like that. 4 stars for this one. The next one I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. Catherine Center was really good. Same thing. The last couple pages was like a reflection. You had the author's note on it. Great book club book especially. But it talks about, I need to get the names right because I've read so many books. So Sadie and what's the guy's name? The guy's a veterinarian, but I'm trying to think. Gosh, what's his name? So here's the thing. The reason why you don't really know the guy's name is because she thinks the guy is somebody else. So Sadie, which is the main female lead in this book, she first goes, well, she ends up having this brain problem. And the brain problem had her to have surgery. And the surgery resulted in her not being able to recognize faces. So she met this guy, but then she meets all these new people in her apartment, the new guy that which is the guy she's crushing on. And she can't see their faces. She can only see their walks, maybe what they're wearing. You're kind of watching that journey of her figure out this new way of living, which is pretty cool. So those are the books I read this month. I actually had a pretty decent month. Did I have a lot of 5 stars? No. So do I hope to have more 5 stars? Definitely. But this is a pretty good month. I read most of these books I think I read 6 of these books in 10 days. The other 2 I read, I think the first 2 or 3 days of the month, which is great. So this is my stack I have for the month, which is amazing. I'm excited for what I'm gonna read this next month. I think I read a lot of different books that I'm not used to reading. I read some mystery, I read no fantasy, but I figured out what I liked in books, which is really great. I realized that I love romances with a plot. Those are the only books that I'll ever rate 5 stars. I also realized too, I love for things to not be predictable. So, which is amazing. So I learned that this month, which is great. So I'm done with all this. And So this is all I have for my September wrap up. And thank you guys for watching this. I hope everything's great. I hope you guys have a good reading month and you had a good reading month. I will see you guys in the next video.